Hello, everyone, and welcome back to JDD TV. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming, joined by my friend Filippo Silva. It's been a while since I've talked to Filippo, and I got him on the channel today because, like he usually does, he puts out a tweet, rubs some Canadians the wrong way. We bring him to the channel, and we talk about it. So, Filippo, how are you doing, my man?
Long time no see, right?
It has been a while. It has been a while. Excited to be back, and I'm excited to talk with you.
Well, I mean, we're going to go through the tweet. We're going to go through my take on Canada, but I mean, we even talked about this before. The tweet's not controversial. People reacted in a controversial manner because it's about being realistic of the state of each national team right now. And we're going to dive into all of that and doing the Copa America ranking with even the teams that didn't qualify, which if you look at my ranking, for a team that didn't even qualify, I ranked Canada pretty damn high.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think I replied on it. Usually when you throw the Canada flag out and it's a really offside take, I'll come in there just because it's fun to get in the engagement. But like I said, considering Canada has not qualified yet, I didn't even feel like I had the right to comment on it. But it didn't stop a lot of Canadians. Some Canadians were upset. So we'll bring up the tweet right now. And Filippo said, as we did with America rankings, simply based on teams on paper, it would look something like this. So Filippo wanted to be very, very clear. He wasn't doing on performance, obviously. He was going just teams on paper, looking at the talent. This is his list. He put Brazil at 1, Argentina 2, Uruguay 3, 4 to 6, a mix of Colombia, USA, and Ecuador. 7 was Jamaica, 8 was Mexico, and 9, 10 was Paraguay and Canada. So you seem pretty confident with that? No, don't regret any of the on paper ratings there?
No, I think on paper is fair, and even with and I think the reason Canada made it in terms of made it to the top 10 ranking was because it's on paper. If I put performance, I can't put a team top 10 in performance if they didn't even qualify, right? I couldn't do that. But I even put them ahead of Panama because on paper I think Canada is better than Panama. But no, I think that's fair. I still stand by that. We could get into a bit of a debate in regards to Canada and Paraguay on paper. There's good players on both sides. Jamaica on paper is really good, especially the dual nationals they recruited. A lot of Premier League players. Bailey has been playing well for Aston Villa. Still have Mikel Antonio. Damari Gray, I think he went actually to Saudi Arabia, but he's playing well for the national team. Ethan Pinnock, that might even be the best center back in CONCACAF. Andre Blake might be the best goalkeeper in Major League Soccer. So Jamaica on paper is really good. And then when you go to 4 and 6, the US, Colombia, and Ecuador, the thing is people will want to argue this, but on paper, these three, it's more or less like pick your poison. Like Ecuador and Colombia might have the top 3 players there. Luis Diaz, Caicedo, he's up there too. Estupinan has been amazing. And then you get Christian Pulisic right after. I think personally the U.S. might have a bit more depth than some of them to a certain extent, more players in Europe and better leagues. But those three, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on. If someone puts Ecuador in 4th, the U.S. in 5th, Colombia 6th, or vice versa, it wouldn't really matter. Now, the top 3 of that ranking you mentioned, I would, if it was based off performances, Brazil would go down to 3. And then it becomes more or less Uruguay and Argentina top 2. Some people will put Uruguay because they defeated Argentina. But again, this has happened multiple times in history. Uruguay defeats Brazil and Argentina, and then Brazil defeats them. It happens. These are high-quality teams. But if it was based off performance, I'd probably put Argentina first, Uruguay second, and then Brazil third. I think Uruguay is really good, but a little bit overhyped right now because of the early Bielsa effect, and people are not looking into that. I think they're very good. They're still top 3 even without that. But there's a little bit of overhype there. This always happens with Bielsa. We always see this with him. Early hype and then, just kind of fades away. But okay, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe they're all putting Uruguay's favorites to win the Copa America. I don't think they're going to win the Copa America.
I don't think so either, but I do think top 3 is fair. Like I said, you put up a lot of tweets that especially rubbed some Canadians wrong over the years, but this one for me wasn't it. If you would have switched maybe for me Canada and Paraguay, but like you said, probably it didn't really matter. I think it's totally fair. But that leads us into what we're going to do today. We're going to work together and we're going to do a power rankings. We're going to use 18 teams because there's still those 2 qualifiers, and I don't want to assume that Canada's going to qualify because there's a very good chance they potentially won't. So we're going to include Trinidad and Tobago, Honduras, and Costa Rica. So Let's start at the very top, Filippo.
Wait. Is this ranking based on paper or just in general talent and performance, expectations? What is it exactly so I can get my ranking?
I would say we're going to do it on form and how you think they'll do at the tournament. So if you can kind of combine them. So maybe look over the past like 6 months or so, like, you know, recent form and how you kind of expect them to do at the tournament. So I think at number 1, probably pretty safe. I would say Argentina. I don't think that's a wild card. You know, defending World Cup champions on pretty good form right now. It's hard to bet against them. Do you have any? I know that you mentioned Uruguay, but for me, I'd put Argentina 1.
Yeah, we're not doing only current form. We're doing, I guess, like a few months back, a year or so back.
Yeah, let's say within a year.
And projecting also a year into the future. Obviously, looking into on paper coaching situation. There's a few question marks with Argentina right now. Di Maria, it's his last tournament as far as I know, and we know his health situation. He's not always fit, and we saw in the World Cup how crucial he was. Comes into the final, penalty kick and goal. He's always clutch, and we don't know his situation, so maybe Di Maria won't be there. Lionel Messi, he'll always be impactful. He'll always be among the best players of the tournament, but as the years go by, playing MLS, definitely not the same Messi that you probably saw in the World Cup a year and a half later. He's not getting any younger. Will he probably be one of the best players of the tournament, or maybe the best player of the tournament? Yes, and Messi has been the best player of multiple tournaments throughout his entire career, if not almost all of them. But that doesn't mean the gap between Messi and the second best player is as big as it used to be. It's a bit closer. So there's that. Scaloni wanted to leave. I don't know exactly why. That doesn't help. I don't think it's the same Argentina as before, but it's still Argentina, and they just won the World Cup when we're looking a year back, roughly a year back. They are in first place in World Cup qualifying, if I'm not mistaken. They're ahead of Uruguay, if I'm not mistaken. They defeated Brazil in the Maracanã. I have Argentina first, and then if I go second, I have Uruguay right now, because so the top 3, we can already leak it. In my opinion, it has to be Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. You can maybe change the order, but I think those 3 have to be the top 3. And the reason I put Uruguay ahead of Brazil is because they have a stable situation. They're looking good with Marcelo Bielsa right now. They have some world-class talent, just to name a few, right? You have Valverde, De La Cruz, actually not a world-class talent in my opinion, but just moved to Flamengo in Brazil. Great player that was with River Plate. I mean, Araujo on that back line, Jimenez on that back line, Darwin Núñez. The talent is there. It's a lot of quality and a good coach. Brazil, in my opinion, talent's not an issue. And if you go based off talent, they're number 1 out of all these teams in the Americas. But Brazil just named Dorival Jr. as their coach. Before that, it was like interim head coach, part-time coach with Fernando Diniz. Carlo Ancelotti was supposed to arrive, never did. I don't think Dorival's a bad coach by any means, but I don't think he'll take Brazil to the next step. The thing is, for Brazil to compete for a Copa America title, they don't need the best coach. They just need stability. They have stability, they'll be a title contender. That's all. Yeah. Right now, we don't know if they're going to have that with Dorival. I don't know if you know, but Dorival was Neymar's first coach. And I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on your channel, so I'm going to go very vanilla here, very soft. There was a game where Dorival was like trying to get Neymar out of the game. I don't remember the exact situation. Neymar essentially told him to go F himself in the middle of the game. They got into a huge argument, and it ended up with Dorival getting fired. So this was many years ago.
I heard he coached almost every team in Brazil too. Didn't he? Like he's got an incredibly long managerial career right now, and he's, from what I've seen just on Wikipedia, he's coached almost every single team in Brazil, and he doesn't usually last at a club for more than a year from what it looks like. So
no, I think the reason they hired him right now was he was very successful with Flamengo, not in 2023 but in 2022. Very good with Flamengo. Then they didn't re-sign him I thought it was a bit of a stupid decision. They didn't re-sign him. And then last season, I would say he was mildly successful with São Paulo. He won the Brazilian Cup. So I think it's just the moment. He's not ideally the best option. So there's that question mark, Brazil. But if he can bring stability to the national team, Brazil has enough talent to compete for the Copa America, which I don't think Chichi was great either. Chichi wasn't great, but he brought stability to the national team. And then you saw Brazil cruise through World Cup qualifying, win a Copa America final. But then when push comes to shove, you get to the World Cup, that's not enough. So I have Argentina first, Uruguay second, Brazil third. When we go from that perspective, looking 12 months ago and 12 months into the future, talent, projections, I'll have it like that. But again, if stability changes, I put Brazil ahead of Uruguay. Brazil's stable, they're ahead of Uruguay.
I think that's fair. I'd say leading up to the World Cup, looking at the World Cup, we would have probably had Brazil first. I'm pretty confident, comfortable after what they did at that World Cup. Brazil has slid down. And there's also the big question around Neymar. I mean, you know, he is still the poster boy.
He won't play though.
Yeah, like that's I don't know. Maybe that's the reason that this manager got brought in, because they know they want to play with Neymar. I don't know, but like it's different because there's always so much criticism around Neymar. He's expected to be the guy. He hasn't really delivered with the national team, despite, you know, obviously being very successful like individually with them. So I don't know. Just quickly before we move on, do you like Brazil's? Which sounds crazy to say, but like I've seen this debate brought up. Do you like Brazil's chances more without Neymar, or do you wish obviously he was there and healthy?
I think Neymar has always actually delivered for the national team. You kind of said it from an individual standpoint. I think he's always stepped up for the national team. I think the national team has always let him down. When you go to the World Cup, for example, he comes back injured. He was not fully fit, gets that goal against Croatia, which was a very tough goal to score. And then some silly mistakes from the back line and Fred just like storming up the field with 5 minutes left. So the team always has let him down. And even in the Copa America, where he played in the final against Argentina, that match that Brazil lost 1-0, Di Maria scored, Neymar was the best player on the field by a lot. The team keeps letting him down. Now, the question is, why does the team keep letting him down? Because you look at the players on paper, you're like, what's going on here? You have Marquinhos, you have Casemiro, or now even Bruno Guimarães, now Vinicius, Rodrigo. In the past, he had Filippo coaching. There's always been a good supporting cast. But for some reason, especially this team, I don't like the fact that Neymar's out, but I think it will benefit it. Because my issue with Neymar, this team, is it seems like all the current young players, Vinicius, Rodrigo, I guess Bruno Guimarães is younger than Neymar for sure. It seems like they idealize Neymar. It's like they're a fan instead of a teammate. So it almost feels like they're playing for him. And I kind of want to see a team where you have other guys step up. I want to see Vinicius step up. He's been extremely disappointing for the national team, Vinicius Jr. Rodrigo needs to step up. Someone up top. Maybe Endrick can emerge. He already got called in. He's going to be arriving at Real Madrid this summer. Bruno Guimarães needs to step up. All these players need to step up. And without Neymar, they either step up or Brazil gets screwed. So that might be the only good thing about not having Neymar. But he's still the best player Brazil has. We'll see how he comes back from that ACL injury. Generational talent. I'll put it this way. As long as one or two players decide to take on that responsibility, it's a good thing that Neymar's out for a couple months. But if no one does that, this team's not going to look good, man. It's just not. Because Neymar's been carrying Brazil for probably a decade. A little bit over a decade. He's been carrying this team. Yeah, 2012. He's been carrying it for a decade.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%. I'm curious to see what they'll look like and who's going to step up, because I agree. He's always delivered. I've always enjoyed watching Neymar play for the national team despite not finding the team success. But now we need to move on to the next few spots. And looking at your tweet in the order, we had USA, Colombia, Ecuador. Do you think those are the next three in line? And if so, what order are you going in? Because, I mean, I would love to say that, you know, USA would, I'd love to push them down as far as I could, but they, you know, they've done what they needed to do, winning Nations League, getting out of the group in the World Cup. They have talent that's playing all throughout Europe. I mean, some of their players aren't in great form. I mean, Girona's had obviously a bit of a tough season. Balogun hasn't done as well as I thought he was going to do at Monaco, but they still have a ton of talent playing at the highest level of Europe. And, you know, they usually just, like you guys say, here's the bar for the USA. They usually just manage to get there. So I know that your guys' expectations for the USA would be semifinals, which hypothetically means that they should be in the top four of this debate. But then there's Greg, and I know that bugs you a little bit. So I'll let you decide where you want to put the US in in this next three. So where are you going to put them for? Or are you gonna give the nod to a Colombia or a Ecuador, who I know that you rate very highly?
Here's the interesting thing. You kind of just gave us Greg's trademark. That's his trademark right there. It's like, what do you expect from the realistically, what do you expect from the US? Oh, we expect the US to get out of their group in the Copa America in second behind Uruguay. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And then lose to Brazil in the quarterfinals. So Greg will probably do that. If we had That's what he'll do. He'll get out of the group in second. He'll beat Panama and Bolivia, lose to Uruguay or tie Uruguay, finish in second, play Brazil, lose to Brazil. And it's like, he did his job. That's been Greg Berhalter so far. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. So
that's usually,
yeah.
So if I had to bet on something, I'm gonna say the only time I saw Greg Berhalter truly underachieve was World Cup qualifying, because I think qualifying goal differential, he could have finished behind Canada and Mexico, even though I thought that would be underachieving. I thought he should have finished first because the US had more depth and all that. But anyhow, qualifying is qualifying. But qualifying on goal differential, that to me was underachieving. But outside of that, we even got him his nickname to the bare minimum manager, which he does the bare minimum. What do you have to do? He goes and does it, and then, okay, I'm out. That's what he did in the World Cup too. It's like, okay, got out of my group in second, and then got crushed by Netherlands right away. And yes, we did get crushed. Any American that disagreed with that didn't watch the game. The Netherlands went on cruise control against us. They won whenever they won. It's tricky, Josh, because if we look 12 months into the future, into the Copa America, there's one big benefit for the U.S., and you know this. The U.S. actually plays well at home. We do fairly well at home, and the Copa America is in the United States. If we had to go play the Copa America in Colombia, I think the odds of the U.S. eliminating Colombia would be almost zero. We would lose to them. Ecuador too. But we play in the U.S., and the United States, when playing at home, has done reasonably well. And when we play away, it's the complete opposite, like losing to Trinidad. So taking that into consideration, I would probably put the odds of the U.S. defeating Colombia or Ecuador in the Copa America a bit higher. At the same time, we just saw Colombia defeat Brazil in World Cup qualifying. In a game where I thought Brazil probably should have won, Luis Diaz scored 2 headers. Do you expect that from him? Not really. I don't give a crap. They're going to call me biased. I'm going to put the United States in 4th.
Okay.
I think on paper is that. I want to put Ecuador in 5th.
I agree. I was going to say that too.
Yeah, I think Ecuador in 5th. And I'll put Colombia in 6th because, again, also, it's not like Colombia is also packed with talent right now. They're still starting James Rodriguez, for example. Great player, super talented, but far past his prime at this point. And I don't think he ever lived up to the expectation either, as good as he was. I'll put the U.S. in 4th, Ecuador 5th, and Colombia 6th. I'll go that route. But again, this is not really a hill I'm willing to die on. If you come up to me and said Colombia 4th, U.S. 6th, Ecuador 5th, I'm like, that's fine. These are 3 teams that I think are super close, and it's the details. I just think the U.S. has, and you talked about players in the U.S. are not doing well this season, but the U.S. still has Pulisic that's playing among the best players in the Serie A this season. Weston McKennie surprised many, became a locked starter for Juventus, fighting for the title. One of the best midfielders in the Serie A too.
Timothy Weah, Pepe.
Timothy Weah is having an impact. Dest revived his career.
Yeah, left back.
Your boy Dest.
My boy Dest. No, I 100% agree.
A-Rob is really good in the Premier League this season. So there's a lot of Americans that are standing out there. But again, there's the Berhalter tax. And there's also issues with the roster. I don't think we have enough depth on the winger position. Our goalkeeping position is the worst. Sorry, it's the worst it's been since I can remember. Because that's one thing the U.S. always had. We would suck in a bunch of things, but we always had Frito and Tim Howard. It's like, we're good at the goalkeeper. We suck, but we have the goalkeepers here. It seems like that shifted. The field players are a lot better center backs, midfielders, and it's like, who do we have on goal? Matt Turner's struggling.
Yeah.
Zach Steffen is gone. The other guys are not gone. He's in MLS. And then the other guys are super young. The goalkeeper is a question mark. And usually when you're an underdog, goalkeeper is one of the most important positions because that can keep you alive in the game. And we kind of suck there. But I'll go for U.S., Ecuador. And I want to know yours. If you agree with that ranking or you change it.
Like you said, I think they're all pretty close. I would probably put U.S. 4th just because the fact that the tournament is in the U.S. At the end of the day, I think that, and I think that actually helps, which we'll get to. I think that helps Canada's case as well, if you're putting them up against some other, they play relatively well in the U.S. when they do like the Camp Poutine and some other camps will go down to Florida quite a bit.
Home. It's your second home.
Kind of like because it's close. It's right there. Just like if Ecuador is playing in Colombia, you'd still probably back Ecuador over the U.S. if Ecuador was in Colombia. Same kind of thing. But I think for that reason, since they're all close and USA is the home, I agree. And then I like Ecuador's team. I've liked them for a while. I'd put them 5. And I think Colombia's low-key doing pretty well right now in qualifying. So I think that they're definitely a team to keep an eye on. But for right now, those are our 4 through 6. And now we go on 7 to 9. And you put Jamaica, Mexico, and then you said one of Paraguay or Canada. I think it's interesting. On paper, you said that Canada technically would, if they qualified, would technically get out of the group because you had them above Peru and Chile as well. So looking at form, I know the team Canada hasn't qualified. So what is your 7 through 10?
Yeah, the reason I put Canada there too on paper is when you compare Canada to Peru and Chile. I mean, first of all, Alphonso Davies is better than any player in any of these 3 teams right now. Alphonso Davies is better. Then you get Eustáquio. He's also better than any Chilean and Peruvian player right now. So that's 2 players already that Canada has better than any player. Then you put Jonathan David. He's also better than any players they have. And then you put Tejan Buchanan. You would absolutely start for Peru or so. I'm not even thinking much. And there's 4 players right there that probably be. So on paper, Canada is. Now, we could get into a discussion about the weak links. Maybe Canada's weak links are weaker than their weak links, which I think they are. But I think on paper, Canada is better. But if I had to put number 7, and I put Jamaica when it comes to talent, but I'm not putting Jamaica now. If it's 7 looking into the Copa America, there's another team that's going to be technically playing at home. And I know they're probably the worst they've been in my lifetime, in your lifetime. And it's Mexico. I think if I had to rank it, I'll put Mexico in 7th ahead of Jamaica. And I think what Jamaica did was incredible, of actually advancing against Canada, not really expected, and having to pull a result in Canada. But Jamaica's too unstable, man. Anyone that's been following CONCACAF for long enough knows that Jamaica, they'll pull talent and they'll have it, and then crazy stuff happens. So I can't bet on Jamaica yet. But if they have a stable coaching situation and they look at the talent, they're honestly supposed to be competing there with the US, Ecuador, and Colombia. If you look at on paper, they're supposed to be there. But they just never gave us enough confidence to put them there. So I'm putting Mexico in 7th, and then I'll go ahead and I'll actually put Jamaica in 8th. I'll actually put them there in 8th.
So the issue I have with Jamaica, I know it's tough because I don't really have a leg to stand on when Jamaica defeated us at home to make us have to go through the qualifying against Trinidad, and they're heading on. But I just, like you said, Jamaica's never really convinced me. And during those 2 legs, the fact that Canada didn't qualify was just a complete capitulation. They beat them in Jamaica, which I don't think they've ever done before. And they went at home and they were on aggregate leading by 2. And this thing looked dead and buried. They were in complete control, and then just sloppy playing out of the back turned into a goal, and then they just completely folded. And it was something again, like just something I've not seen from this national team in the recent time. I don't think over 2 legs Jamaica deserved to go through just on the way that they played, but at the end of the day, they got it done. And I think as long as Canada qualify for this tournament, I think that they have a better shot at getting out of their group. I think if you put them back to back to do that exact same 2 matches over again, I would bet that Canada can get through. I can say that all I want. They didn't get through. I understand that, but it's one of those things. I don't know what happened. We don't have a head coach right now. I don't have a lot of faith in Biello. We make fun of Greg all the time, but our manager situation right now is not great. I'm afraid that if Canada does defeat Trinidad and Tobago and go to the Copa America, they're just going to stick with Biello because they don't have a lot of money, and they might say, well, you did the bare minimum. You got us to Copa America. Go ahead. So, there's a lot of question marks around it, but just like you mentioned, on individual talent, I think playing in the U.S. will help them a little bit too. I don't know. It's hard for me to argue it, but at the same time, they defeated us, so it's not overly fair. If you agree to put Canada 9, then I'll put.
Well, I want to adjust a couple of things here. So I put Mexico 7th, and the same way we talked about Canada having an advantage to play in the U.S., I think Mexico has an advantage of playing the U.S. more than Canada. Actually,
obviously,
if anything, we might as well say Mexico's the host nation because they'll fill up 90,000 seat stadium. Canada, the U.S. won't. Mexico will sell out every single game, no matter where you put them in the U.S., especially the Copa America. So Mexico in 7th in that sense. But 8th, since we're going based off performance right now, not on paper, I actually want to put Venezuela. Because, normally they would be crap in South America, but they've been doing good in World Cup qualifying. They pulled a result against Brazil away. Whether it was a bit lucky or not, it was a bit lucky. And even that beautiful goal they scored later in the game to tie the game. But how can we leave a team that is right now in CONMEBOL sitting in 4th place? They're ahead of Ecuador. They're ahead of Brazil. How can we leave them out of this ranking? Now, can this change by they can get grouped in the Copa America? That can literally happen. And to be honest, it might happen. But we have to be fair. And what they're doing in CONMEBOL right now, if we don't put Venezuela there, it wouldn't be fair. So I'm putting them in 8th, Venezuela. Before we get to Paraguay, Jamaica, and Canada, I have to throw Venezuela in.
What about Panama? Because I think you put an argument that Panama's form is better than Jamaica's, especially Canada's. But I mean, they're in a tough group. So.
That is a fair point too. We'll get to that discussion. But do you agree with Venezuela?
Yeah. They're a Cinderella story right now in World Cup qualifying, which is just fantastic to see because this is a national team that, at least over my lifetime, when I watch, they're usually 9 or 10 in terms of qualifying, right down there with Bolivia. Mm-hmm. So I like that.
I mean, the Copa America, was it the last edition or 2 editions ago? They had 2 groups of 5, which the goal was literally just to eliminate Venezuela and Bolivia. You eliminate those 2 and go to the knockout rounds. So what I probably would say here is I would put Mexico in 7th, Venezuela in 8th. And I think since we're doing it based off performance, we have a Panama side that put a tough fight against Canada in the Nations League semifinals, made it to the Gold Cup final, have been playing fairly well under Thomas Christensen. So I think Panama in 9th, not on paper, but based on what they're doing, I think it's fair. We can put Panama in 9th. And then I would probably put Jamaica in 10th. I agree with you that if Jamaica and Canada played, probably would be safer to put Canada to advance. But at the end of the day, we're evaluating performances, and Jamaica seems to be a bit more stable. I think Jamaica is also better than Canada on paper. So you go player by player. I think they're better than Canada. They have a better goalkeeper. They have better defense. And then when you look up top, are they better? But I mean, like Jonathan David, Mikel Antonio. Is David a better player? Probably, but Mikel Antonio's played so long in the Premier League that this is a quality player. Leon Bailey, I think they're better on paper. So I'll go Panama 9th, Jamaica 10th, and then I'll put Canada in 11th because Paraguay has some interesting names like Miguel Miron, right? Gustavo Gomes, that plays for Palmeiras, best center back in South America, and Ciso coming up. There's good players, but Paraguay hasn't really been playing well. And it's been like that. I think the last time I saw a good Paraguayan side was probably like the 2010 cycle when they even went to the World Cup. They gave Spain a hard time. It was probably the Hockey Santa Cruz generation. Outside of that, I think Paraguay, and my memory might be failing me, but I'm pretty sure Paraguay hasn't done well for over a decade. So I have to put them behind. But I think on paper, Paraguay and Canada are actually much closer than people think. It's just a matter of them figuring it out. Paraguay definitely has a better defense than Canada. I can assure you that.
I agree. I think Panama, we give them their flowers. I think what they're doing right now under Thomas Christensen is fantastic. I think they're in a tough group, but I like that at 9. Jamaica, I mean, they defeated us. I can cry all I want about it. It is what it is. We'll put them there. And I think Canada, unfortunately, is just in a tough moment right now with their coach, with the off-field issues. There's a ton of talent there. The big thing with those players that you're talking about, comparing them to some of the Jamaican players, is that at least those big players always usually perform for Canada. Davies, David, Larin, I don't know what it is when they come to camp. They, you usually can expect something from them and they deliver, but they haven't even qualified yet. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, putting them 11th is probably fair because as long as they do qualify, they're in a group where they have I think a pretty decent chance to get out. So I think that's pretty fair.
It's also hard for us to justify Canada ahead of Jamaica right now when Jamaica literally was the one that advanced. Yeah. How do we justify it? I mean, the same goes for any team. I understand that there are extremes to it. There's different scenarios, but at the same time, we're talking about how on paper Canada and Jamaica are very similar, or maybe I even think Jamaica on paper is a little bit better than Canada. And then you take into account how the players for Canada step up while the Jamaicans tend to do the opposite, actually. But Jamaica advanced. So how do we justify Canada ahead of him? So I'll put Canada at 11th. But now it's where it gets interesting.
I'd say Paraguay. Paraguay's probably next, right?
Paraguay's 12th. I'll put Paraguay 12th. And then what are the nations we have left? We have Honduras, Costa Rica, Trinidad and Tobago, Chile, Bolivia, and one more, and Peru.
Yep.
So Peru is actually in last place in World Cup qualifying for CONMEBOL, but I think they're figuring out. I think they signed a new coach, something like that, and I think that's the issue. They're not the worst team in CONMEBOL, in my opinion. It's Bolivia, and can I just put Bolivia in 18th already? Because
under Trinidad and Tobago.
I mean,
you think? I mean, I know they beat the US.
Like, Bolivia, honestly, for me, it's like when they don't play in the altitude, it's just not there.
We can work our way down, or we can start at 18 right now, if you want. Okay. And then go up to 13.
How can I put Trinidad there when they literally defeated my country?
Hey, that's fine. You're very familiar with Bolivia. They're not playing in altitude. We'll put them 18. I think it's hard to probably argue that Trinidad, despite everything, they're probably 17.
And let's be honest, they defeated the U.S. because Serginho Dest decided to kick the ball into the stands and get a red. The U.S. had a 1-0 lead there, and the game was under control. But anyhow, they did defeat the U.S. So I'm putting Bolivia 18th, Trinidad 17th. And then now we have Peru, Chile, Honduras, and Costa Rica. So I have 4 left. I'm going to put Costa Rica 16th, man, because that generation just declined, and they're not looking. I think they're not going to qualify. I think Honduras will qualify. We saw Honduras against Mexico. Panama toyed around with Costa Rica. They toyed around with Costa Rica. So I'm putting Costa Rica 16th. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think it's close. I'd probably go Costa Rica, then Honduras in 16, 15. The Honduran side, doesn't excite me at all, but neither does the Costa Rica one, as our friend Eddie would tell us. So I think I don't really.
I agree.
Yeah. Either way, it wouldn't surprise me if one or the other qualify, but I don't think either one is going to have a lot of success at this Copa America. So I think they're both there. And then that leaves 2 more. The 2 that are in Canada's group, funny enough, we put them below in the power rankings. They're both having really tough spells right now, far from what, especially that Chile side used to be. I mean, even Peru.
Say it as it is, they both suck.
But they both over the past 10 years has had a lot of success within Copa America, and even Chile in the World Cup is no pushover either. So, I mean, you follow these 2 sides a little bit more closely than I do. I'd probably go Peru in 14th, Chile in 13th, because they still have some older talent. But I mean, kind of same way with Costa Rica and Honduras. I don't really know. But that's what I would do. What do you think?
I think when we're looking into the Copa America, Chile was successful when they won those 2 Copa Americas back in 2015, 2016. They didn't qualify to the 2018 World Cup, didn't qualify to the 2022 World Cup. They're still using some of the same players from that golden generation that won it. They haven't renewed the talent. I think Chile is worse than Peru right now, despite Peru being behind Chile in the World Cup qualifying. Peru, once they figure out the coaching situation, they should be all right. And Peru, they've been sneaky good in Copa America as of late. Very sneaky good. If you go the past, I think, 4 editions, they made it to a final, semifinals. I think they made it twice to the semifinals. They're sneaky good. And I think Peru, with the coaching situation resolved, they're better than Chile right now. Chile is not good at all. A few weak links. So I'm not going to dive into Chile too much. So I'll put Peru 13th and Chile 14th.
All right. And that completes our 1 through 18 power rankings right now of the 2024 Copa America. Really hoping that Canada qualifies, because if they don't, then I might have to leave all social media. If
Want to become American?
We'll see. I don't know if they'll have me, but all right, Filippo, I appreciate the time. This was a lot of fun. Maybe we check in a little closer to and kind of take a look at what we did here, and then see if anything changed when obviously figure out who qualifies, and maybe like just a little bit before the Copa America begins. Should be fun. Should be great for soccer within CONCACAF, and it should be a great tournament overall. So Filippo, I appreciate the time, my man. It was great talking to you again.
Thanks again, man, for having me, and welcome back.